There's a scene in season 5 of The Boys that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. A-Train, a man who Homelander has humiliated, dismissed, and treated like shit for 5 seasons, is pinned against a tree and caught with nowhere left to run. And instead of begging for his life, he starts laughing directly in Homelander's face. And during that scene, he says some stuff to Homelander that really stuck with me. Take a listen.
That's so funny.
What was I so afraid of? You are fucking nothing.
Really?
Really? You're just an empty fucking suit. You take away these powers. And what are you, huh? Pathetic. Weak. Sniveling fucking loser.
And directly after that scene, Homelander snaps his neck. And I think that reaction tells you everything you need to know about who Homelander really is. Because that wasn't anger or dominance. That was panic. That was a man shutting down a question that he doesn't have the answer to. The most powerful person, a man so dangerous the entire world walks on eggshells around him. And A-Train, the speedster we all love, in his final moments made him flinch. So here's what I want to get into today. Not whether Homelander dies at the end of The Boys, but what the right ending actually looks like for someone like him. Because I don't think most people are asking the right question. Most people want to know if Homelander dies or survives. But what I want to know is if the show is brave enough to give him something much worse. Let's start with something that sounds simple, but is actually the key to understanding everything about Homelander. Homelander doesn't just want power. What he needs is an audience. Think about it. Every dictator, every tyrant, every supervillain in fiction all want control. They want resources, territory, and legacy. Homelander wants those things too, but underneath all of it, what he's really chasing is something far more fragile. He wants people to believe in him, not obey him, but believe in him. Think about how many times Homelander's most important moments happens in front of a crowd. He doesn't just want to win, he wants you watching while he wins. The whole performance collapses without an audience, and the show keeps putting him in the spotlight because Homelander fundamentally cannot exist without being perceived. There's a psychological concept called contingent self-worth. It's the idea that some people's sense of their own value isn't internal, it's entirely dependent on external validation. They never feel worthy because they've decided they are. They feel worthy when other people confirm it, and the moment that confirmation stops or that validation stops, the whole sense of self starts to collapse. Homelander is the most extreme version of this you'll ever see. He can level buildings, he can hear your heartbeat from a mile away, he can fly to the edge of the atmosphere and look down on the world like a god. And none of that, and I mean none of it, makes him feel enough. Because it's not about what he can do, but it's about what he's doing that means to the people watching. The god needs you to believe, and the moment you stop believing, something cracks. But here's what I keep coming back to. If his identity is so fragile and it's dependent on other people's perception of him, then what happens if you don't kill him? What happens if you take away the thing that makes people even look at him? And to answer that, we have to go back to the beginning. See, before we get into this, I want to be very clear about something before we go here. This is not a redemption argument per se. I'm not about to tell you that Homelander deserves sympathy or that his trauma excuses what he's done, because it doesn't, and he's an absolute monster. But there's a difference between excusing something and understanding it. And if we want to talk about what the right punishment looks like for Homelander, we have to actually understand what was taken from him at a young age, because that's the thing that makes the punishment mean something. Homelander was born in a lab, not metaphorically, but like literally. He was a science experiment, and he lasered his way out of his surrogate mother's womb and was immediately placed in a controlled environment where every single interaction that he had with another human being was transactional. Every scientist around him had an agenda, every test had a purpose, and every moment of attention was conditional on what he could do and not who he was. He was burned in furnaces to test his durability, humiliated during puberty while scientists took notes, and brainwashed with patriotic images imagery to make him easier to market. He was denied anything resembling genuine human connection for the entirety of his childhood. And here's the part that really wrecks me when I sit with it. After all the things that the scientists did to him, all he wanted was their love. Not just their approval, but their love. He craved unconditional love from the very people holding the clipboards. I don't think that's a monster. That's just a child. A terrified, isolated child in the body of something that could destroy the entire world, desperately trying to figure out if anyone actually cared about him. Now, the milk addiction is the clearest window into this. It's mostly played for discomfort, and rightfully so, but what it actually represents is an infant's longing and their comfort, and the one thing that should be unconditional that never was. He's a grown man still searching for something that he never got in the first place. That's why he clings on to Soldier Boy and people he sees as fathers. Now here's where everything connects to everything else, because Vought didn't just give Homelander powers, they gave him powers instead of a self-being. While a normal child is figuring out who they are and what they like and what they believe in, Homelander was being shaped into a product. His entire identity was handed to him, prepackaged. The suit, the name, the smile, the mythology. He never got to find out who he really was underneath all of that. So the powers aren't something that Homelander has. They're something that internally he is, or at least something he believes he is. Take them away and there's nothing to fall back on. There's just the absence of everything that he was ever told he was. That's not just scary to him, that's annihilation. And that's exactly why, when the show reaches for immortality as his season 5 obsession, it's not about really living forever, it's something else entirely. And once you see exactly what it is, you can never unsee it. There's a moment in season 4 where you see Homelander standing in front of a urinal and he notices he has gray hair. It's a small thing, yes, easy to read as a joke, but I think it's one of the most revealing things the show has ever done with his character. Homelander is not vain in the way celebrities are vain. He doesn't care about really being attractive. What he cares about is being invulnerable. And gray hairs aren't ugly, they're mortal. They're evidence that time is happening to Homelander, whether he consents to it or not. For most people, aging is uncomfortable, and for Homelander, it's an existential threat. His entire psychology is built on the idea that he is fundamentally different from ordinary humans. Not just stronger, but different in a separate category of being. He's above the food chain and above consequences, and all in all above time. The moment his body starts showing signs of aging, that psychology starts to fracture, because mortality is the most human thing that there is. You can't be a god and also have gray hairs. Those two things just can't coexist. So the V1 serum isn't really about immortality, it's more about proof. It's about having a biological fact that he can point to, something in his bloodstream that confirms that yes, I am immortal, and something that he's always needed to believe about himself, that he's not like you and I, and that he will never be like you and I. And the question that A-Train asked him in his final moments is irrelevant because the premise is factually impossible. Think about what he does the moment Soldier Boy hands him the V1. He doesn't hesitate or ask any questions. He immediately lasers a wound into his arm and injects it, because the V1 serum isn't a weapon to him. It's the answer to the thing that he's been looking for ever since his existence. It's the thing that finally closes the door on the version of himself that he could never face. But here's the problem. The V1 doesn't fix the hollow part. In that same episode, before Homelander gets the V1, he tracks down the Legend, an old man who used to work at Vought. Homelander finds him expecting to find someone terrified, and he is terrified at first, but then they have what I would call a heart-to-heart, and Homelander asks him if he's afraid, and the Legend looks at him and says he's not afraid, but more so feels sorry for him. And in doing that, Homelander lets him walk away alive. And that one thing, that one pity from one old man still gets to him, because the wound was never physical. Compound V gave him the body of a god, yes, but it never gave him the soul of one, and no serum or V1 in the world can fix that. Which then brings me to the show's ending, and this is where I want to push back on what maybe most people might want from this show, because I think having Homelander die is actually wrong, and once I explain it, you might agree with me. I know. 5 seasons of Homelander doing the most unspeakable things, and I'm sitting here about to tell you that his death wouldn't be satisfying. But bear with me for a minute. I want you to think about what Homelander dying would actually give him. Death usually means the final act, a last stand, a moment where he is, for the last time, the most important thing happening, and that the stakes are about him, and that the whole entire story, everything that the boys have sacrificed, all culminates in him. He gets to be the final boss, and he gets to go down fighting, and he he eventually will get a myth. And worse, he gets to escape, because dead men don't have to live with anything. Dead men don't have to wake up the next morning and figure out who they are. Dead men don't have to face a world that has moved on from them. So killing Homelander gives him exactly what he wants and what he's always wanted, which is more so significance, and removes the one thing he's always feared, which is him having to live without that significance. There's a reason he killed Adrian the moment that question came out. He didn't want to sit with that question. He didn't want anyone to sit with that question either. Death is the ultimate way of never having to answer to your actions. Homelander would love that death. He would love to die as the greatest villain that the boys has ever faced. People would remember him. They'd talk about him. There'd be documentaries, monuments, and stories. That isn't punishment. That is a reward dressed up as consequence. The show has spent 5 seasons building towards something, and I don't think it's necessarily a fight, but I think it's a question. The same question that Adrian asked. The same question that Homelander has been running from since the very beginning of this show. And the only way to make him actually face it is by taking everything away and leaving him here to answer for it. But what does that actually look like? Not as a concept, but like concretely. What does Homelander's face look like the first time he tries to fly and nothing happens? What does the room feel like when people realize they don't have to be afraid of him anymore? Because when you actually start to picture it, it's so much worse than anything a fight could do to him. Alright, so what does a powerless Homelander actually look like? We know that Soldier Boy's blast has already been established as something that can strip Compound V from a soup's body. It worked on Maeve, and it worked at Herogasm, and Season 5 has already shown us that it can work on V1-2 when he depowered Bombsight. Cool character, by the way. So the mechanism exists. So say it happens. Say in the finale, somehow, Soldier Boy gets close enough, or the uranium exposure weakens him enough, or Marie Moreau renders the V1 inert in his blood. Doesn't really matter how it happens, but just say Homelander wakes up and the powers are gone. He has no flight, no laser eyes, no invincibility or super strength. He can't hear your heartbeat or see through walls. He's just a regular Joe, 6 foot something blonde guy in a suit that no longer means anything. And here's what I think happens next. Nobody is afraid of him, not in the way that matters. Sure, he might have followers who are loyal out of his ideology, but the instinctive fear that a room full of people feel when Homelander walks in is absolutely gone, because that fear was never about him. It was about what he could do to them. Strip the powers and the room completely changes. People stand up straighter, people stop looking at the floor, and some might even laugh. And Homelander would feel every single bit of it. He would feel the way you feel about a phantom limb, the expectation of power, the muscle memory of being the most powerful, dangerous person in the room, and then nothing. Just a man who people are slowly realizing that they don't actually have to be afraid of. That's not death. That's something he doesn't have a word for. Homelander has spent his entire life either being worshipped or feared, and both of those things at least confirmed that he mattered. But ordinariness doesn't confirm anything. Ordinariness just confirms that, hey, you're here. Out of 1 billion people, no more significant than the other person. So for most people, that's just a regular Tuesday. But for Homelander, that is the end of his world. That is the bane of his existence. And I want to be honest with you here. I don't know if the show goes there. I hope they do. The safe ending is obviously the dramatic one. Butcher and Homelander, one final fight, someone dies between them, and the credits roll. And the show that we all love is over. That would be satisfying in the way that action movies are satisfying, yes. And I wouldn't be angry at that, but I don't think it would be brave. The Boys has always been a show about what happens when power goes completely unchecked. When no one can say no, and the person who could stop you is also the person destroying you. Every season has always been asking the same question. Not, can someone beat Homelander? But what do you do with a person like him? Killing him answers the first question, but not the second. And I think about A-Train dying with that question in the air. Take away these powers, and what exactly is Homelander? The most honest ending to this show isn't Homelander dying with the answer still unspoken or unanswered. It's Homelander being alive, powerless, and ordinary, and for the first time in his life, forced to find out what that feels like. Maybe he falls completely apart. Maybe, stripped of everything, there's actually something human left underneath. I doubt that, but maybe the absence of power is the most real thing that he's ever felt. But I don't know. And honestly, neither does Homelander. And that's the point. And that's the ending that I feel would satisfy me. But let me know what you think about that in the comments. I'd love to see your takes. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and take care.